Welcome to the Minnesota WIC Participant-Centered Webinar Series. My name is Karen. I'll be facilitating the webinar today. So during this webinar series, we've been sharing ideas and best practices for providing participant-centered WIC services. And joining me today is my colleague Marcus. He'll be doing the behind-the-scenes work of monitoring the phone lines and just making sure things run smoothly. The topic we're going to talk about today is discussing weight. So we'll talk about the challenge, why conversations around weight are often difficult. We'll also discuss ideas and strategies to approach conversations about weight effectively. We sent you a survey and asked for your ideas on this topic, and we got a great response. I want to thank those of you that responded to the survey, and we'll share many of your suggestions today. You're the ones that have these conversations every day, and you know what works and what doesn't. So assessing weight gain and growth, they're parts of our assessment process at WIC. And we'll talk in a minute about the reasons why it's part of our assessment process. But first I want to tell you a story about my experience. As part of my job, I often do focus groups with WIC participants. I have done them in different states across the country. What I'll do is I'll get 6 to 10 participants in a room, and I'll talk to them about the services they receive at WIC. And one recurring theme that I hear over and over really concerns me, and it has to do with discussions about weight. And the theme is that when I come to WIC, I'm told my child is obese or overweight. I hear things like, I go to my doctor, and they tell me they're fine, and then when I come to WIC, they tell me my child's obese. And the parents say, it makes me feel like a bad parent, or it makes me so angry. Or I've heard, they told me my child is underweight and that I was starving them to death. Now, I know that's not what the WIC person said, but that's what they heard. What they got from the discussion is, your child is not what they're supposed to be. And this theme comes up frequently, and it's not isolated to one part of the country. So I think it is something that we really have to look at within WIC and within our processes. We don't want this perception. This is not our intention when we have discussions around weight. We have to examine how we have discussions around body size and weight that don't lead to feelings of being judged or feelings of inadequacy. Because this is not where we're going to see that confidence, see that motivation, and where those positive nutrition and health changes will take place. Weight and weight gain are often sensitive issues for women and parents. Many times strong emotions come into play. There's stigmas, there's labels, there's often shame and guilt around issues of body weight. There's feelings of powerlessness. So as nutrition counselors, we want to find ways to make that conversation around growth and weight effective and positive for participants. We want our conversations to breed confidence and optimism, not negative feeling. So why discuss weight at all? Normally when it comes to nutrition and health, we're focused on behaviors, on adopting healthy behaviors or reducing unhealthy behaviors. Weight's not a behavior. Weight and body size are the result of many things. Your calorie balance, which is affected by your eating habits, your activity levels, your metabolism rate, genetic factors come into play. So if weight's not a behavior, and it's often so emotionally charged, why have discussions around weight at all? Why do we assess it? Well, we assess weight because weight can be an indicator of nutrition-related risks. It can be an indicator of underlying issues around eating and physical activity behaviors. And overweight and underweight can have negative health consequences. So for women, excess weight is linked to fertility issues. Excessive prenatal weight gain could be a cause or an effect of complications in pregnancy, like gestational diabetes or preeclampsia. We know that obesity can lead to chronic health problems like heart disease, circulatory issues, joint damage, and other diseases. And there's also that compounding factor that excess weight often prevents people from engaging in positive health behaviors, like physical activity. and can often lead to self-esteem issues that play into that cycle of keeping people from positive changes in their lives. Similarly, with children, weight can be an indicator of feeding issues, growth issues. It can be involved with health issues, both short and long term. Also with children, excess weight may limit those other healthy behaviors. So for these reasons, we use weight as an indicator. Additionally, if a core theme of PCS is evoking motivation, this is an area where people often have motivation for change. Oftentimes, we'll hear change talk around weight. A woman might wish she weighed more or weighed less. A parent might be worried their child is too big or too small. In our role, we want to help participants have the healthy behaviors that are going to lead to good health. We don't want to shy away from these conversations about weight. We want to feel comfortable having the conversation. And we can elicit that motivation, and then we can help translate it to behaviors that they can affect. Health behaviors that will lead to healthy growth and healthy weight ranges. We know that health can come in many different shapes and sizes. We know thinness doesn't equate to health without those healthy behaviors being in place. And that's why with PCS, we might use weight as an assessment tool, but we do put the emphasis of our nutrition counseling on the adoption of healthy behaviors, things people can control, habits that can be developed in any person, no matter what their size. Our growth grids and our weight gain grids are important assessment tools for us. They're a screening tool. They're one piece of that overall big picture of this person's nutritional status. And we know that many parents and pregnant women are interested in seeing how their child is growing, where they or their child fall on the chart, and some aren't. And so they're an assessment tool, but they also could be a counseling tool. They might help us start a conversation or provide information to a participant that we feel they should have. When we decide to use the growth grids or BMI charts as an assessment tool versus a counseling tool will depend on the situation. With PCS, we tailor the tools we use to the needs and interests of that individual. On the survey, many of you mentioned that you asked the participants first if they'd like to see the growth chart. On the survey, we asked, when do you feel sharing the growth charts is effective and when is it ineffective? And here are some of the examples of when you said it's effective. When parent or pregnant women show interest. When parents have questions or are concerned. Now, one person on the survey said, it seems to me like they're always interested in seeing the charts. But she also went on to say that she does stay alert for those few that aren't interested or don't want to see their weight, so she can honor that as well.
Connected. So
when there's been a big change in BMI, it's effective to show the growth chart. When you feel it will add value to the conversation or increase understanding. To give reassurance to breastfeeding moms that their children are gaining appropriately. This person also said, the children the curve often works for those people who want their child to gain more and feel like the bigger their child is, then the healthier their child is, which can be more common in certain cultures like Somali or Hispanic populations, for example. So it could give reassurance that their child is in a healthy zone. It's always good information for parents and participants to visualize. And a couple of other people reported that they prefer to show the growth chart every time there's a measurement taken. And I want to acknowledge the range in professional opinion among us, and that there's no one right way. You have to decide for yourself what's effective and in the best interest of the participant. On these webinars, we're sharing your ideas and strategies, and then you can choose to take and modify these ideas or strategies to fit your own particular counseling style. So when are using the growth charts as a counseling tool ineffective? Here's what you said. When parents are not interested and are very guarded around weight. When you ask if they want to see the charts and they say no. when the client is already well aware of their or their child's weight issue, if parents are already aware of a concern due to conversations with other professionals. So if a parent has already voiced negative emotions around her weight or her child's weight gain, showing her might not help. You already have the motivation, the change talk. Now you can move directly to the discussion, the behavior change conversation. When they're not interested in change, it might be ineffective. We know that a core piece of participant-centered services is about evoking and eliciting. I want to know more about how they feel than how I feel. I want insight into their interests, concerns, their motivations, and that's how we tailor the conversation to them. And this will affect the questions that I ask, what approach I take, the tools I use, and what and how much information that I share. So we can get this information with questions. A lot of you on the survey said that you want to start any conversation around weight or body size by first asking, checking in with them, and then using those responses to guide where the conversation goes. So here are some of your responses. Ask people about their goals for weight gain and children's weight, how they feel about it, and questions they might have. If BMI has increased, I ask, what changes have occurred lately that might be contributing to the increase? I like to ask, how do you feel about your child's growth? So finding out what they've been told by other providers first. So with our questions, our goal is really to make it safe for parents to share honestly. So I want to do a poll using some examples of these initial questions and hear from you what initial open question might help parents open up about their feelings concerning their child's weight. So we'll go to the first poll, and what I'll do is I'll read you the responses and then we can vote on our favorite. So what would your initial question be for parents? How do you feel about his growth? What questions or concerns do you have about her growth? What has the doctor said about his weight? Some parents have concerns that their child is too big or too small compared with other children their age. What are your thoughts around your child's growth? How do you feel your child's height and weight compares with other children her age? Or maybe you have another one. You can go ahead now, and I also encourage you, there's a chat box on the screen. You can feel free to put in the initial question that you used to start the conversation. And I'll give you some time to do that now. As the votes are coming in, I'll go ahead and broadcast it because it looks like we are having a winner here. And it looks like the first question, how do you feel about his growth? Just a very simple, very open question that could really get any response from participants, however they feel. They would feel comfortable answering that. I'm going to go back to our presentation. So if we're using growth charts for children, how we explain it to parents is very important. We asked on the survey for your suggestions around how to use the growth charts to explain to a parent when their child is outside the normal range. And one of you said, that's a hard question to answer in a quick survey. There's a lot of individualizing going on. It depends on the person and the situation. And that's so true. There's really a range of normal. Infants and children of the same age come in all shapes and sizes. Children grow at their own pace. There's a wide range of healthy shapes and sizes among children. Genetics, gender, health problems, environment, lifestyle factors, life nutrition and physical activity, they all influence a child's height and weight. And many of these factors vary from family to family. So BMI is a screening tool that's a measure of body weight adjusted for height. It doesn't measure body fat directly. And what we look for is really a trend in growth. That's more important than looking at any particular measurement. We want to look for a pattern. And ideally, each child will follow along that same growth pattern over time, growing in height and weight, gaining at the same rate. with the height and weight in proportion to one another. And this means that a child usually stays on a certain percentile line for the growth curve. How we discuss the chart will depend on their previous pattern. Was it a recent weight gain, or was it a rapid change in BMI? Or is the pattern they've followed for a long time and that's their normal consistent pattern? If you had a girl on the 10th percentile line, but she's always been on that line and she's continuing to grow along her pattern, that's her normal. One of you said it's important to let them know that it's not like a test where the higher the number, the better the number. Whether they're growing consistently along the 15th percentile or the 80th percentile, one is not better than the other. What we care about the most is the trend, and if their body weight for height is higher or lower than what's expected for that age. So here are some of your comments around explaining growth charts. Sometimes they are above or below and consistently following the same curve. It is normal for them. This chart is showing how your child compares with others at his or her age. Ask parents if they know about BMI and what it means, and show them where their child is. Ask what questions they have about this, and go from there. I may say your child's weight or proportion is plotting above the normal range for their age. When looking at Jimmy's growth pattern, his weight has started to increase or decrease at a faster or slower pace than his height. Explain what percentiles are, meaning 100 isn't the best, and emphasize the overall pattern. May use phrases like growing faster in height than weight, or gaining more weight recently than we might expect. So some good ways to explain those growth charts. And when it comes to weight and growth charts, sometimes you might want to share a concern with parents. Being participant-centered doesn't mean that we can't share our thoughts and our opinions in the best interest of that participant. PCS is a partnership. If I'm doing nutrition counseling in the best interest of the participant, sometimes that might mean sharing a concern that hasn't been brought up by the parent. And if the situation does arise, using your PCS communication skills will help frame that concern effectively. We can ask permission to share, a sign of respect. We can emphasize their autonomy. They know their child best. The decisions are theirs to make. We can ask for their input. For example, I might say, is it okay if I point out something on the growth chart? During the last 2 visits, there's been quite a change in weight compared to height, so she's gaining weight faster than height. You know your child best. Is there anything that's changed recently in terms of her eating that might help explain the change? So just knowing that offering a concern is a valid thing for us to do. When asked on the survey for what's important when discussing weight, one person wrote, being empathetic, acknowledging it is a subject that's difficult to discuss. We know that cultivating empathy can help improve the effectiveness of our nutrition counseling. Many of us have thoughts, judgments around weight and overweight, whether it's for ourselves or for others. Many of us and our participants might have experienced judgment or discrimination because of our weight. In our society, there's so many messages and judgments around weight. So how can we let that go in our discussion with participants and cultivate that non-judgment and acceptance of this person as an individual to help them reach the goals that are right for them? We want to maintain that air of optimism and that belief in the power of positive nutrition-related behaviors to improve health and well-being for whatever size and whatever body type that we have. On the survey, several of you mentioned that the words we use are important, that people might often have negative emotions around words like fat, skinny, overweight, obese, too heavy. Sometimes they say using the term weight is a more neutral term, so healthy weight, excess body weight, that's more neutral. With prenatal women, we have discussions around recommended weight gain and rate of weight gain during pregnancy. So why do we have these discussions? Well, we already said that rapid weight gain could be associated with pregnancy issues like gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, premature birth. But another reason is that higher prenatal weight gain is associated with higher postpartum weight retention. So many women aren't getting back to their pre-pregnancy weight. And women are likely to get pregnant again without taking off all the weight from their previous pregnancy. And this process can lead to obesity as women increase in weight with each pregnancy. So it's important to talk about people's goals for weight gain during pregnancy and weight loss after pregnancy. So some tips for discussing weight gain with pregnant women from the survey. With pregnant women, talking about their concerns related to losing the baby weight after delivery helps them focus on how their weight gain during pregnancy will contribute to more or less weight to lose later. Open-ended questions on how do you feel about your weight during this pregnancy. I probed for how they're feeling about their weight gain. If I get resistance, I may shift to discuss factors in weight gain or loss like meals or activity levels without directly addressing their weight status. So again, that customization, meeting them where they're at, tailoring the conversation. Often many of us, and I know I fall into this category, are apprehensive about asking about motivations around weight loss after a woman has recently had a baby. I think to myself they might be overwhelmed. They might have just had a C-section. Here are some quotes from the survey. I do not ever mention weight postpartum unless a mom asks me about it. I often see them so soon after delivery that I don't bring it up. For me, I felt that by bringing it up, I was pressuring them somehow to take action. And that's not the message that I wanted to send, to add pressure to their already busy schedule. But I've changed my thinking here. And I think that we can find ways to ask about goals and ask about motivations without pressuring or without telling. Because many women do have motivations or hopes around getting back to their pre-pregnancy weight eventually. And if I can give them that opportunity to voice those motivations out loud, and even better to make plans or small goals around those motivations, then that change is more likely to take place. I'm not pressuring, I'm just offering that safe space to share their hopes and desires openly. Because then I can help them to talk about those ideas and to make those hopes a reality, to focus on the behaviors and the habits that are going to get them there. Often after that initial visit, the WIC sessions tend to focus more on the child, their eating, their weight, and less on the mother. I want to keep some focus on that mother because her behaviors and habits will impact that entire family. I want to find safe ways that we can offer women that space to voice those motivations without judgment and without pressure. So whether you ask about her feelings about her weight specifically or about motivations around healthy behaviors in general, that's up to you and your style. And whether you do it at the initial postpartum visit or the next one, or if there's motivation, maybe at each subsequent visit, that's up to you too. But I think if we frame it right, we can give them the freedom to discuss motivations in a way that won't be pressuring them. Here are some of your ideas around framing that question safely. Ask, what are any goals you have for weight loss after pregnancy? Ask them how they're feeling about their recovering body from pregnancy instead of, are you happy with your weight? Or ask what has been the biggest struggle with weight loss or exercise. Ask them what their comfortable weight is and if they're actively working to reach a goal. Any concerns with the weight you gained during your pregnancy? Here's a couple more. I don't focus on the number or their ideal body weight. What is the weight or size where they feel happy and comfortable? What's realistic and what can they do to reach that goal? First, asking them what their goals are as far as weight meet them meet them at their goal rather than telling them the recommended weight would be for her. So let's do another poll question. I want to give you some of the suggested ways for framing that postpartum question and see what you like best. So again, I will read the responses and then you can vote for your favorite question to begin that conversation. So as you start to lose the weight from the pregnancy, what do you think a healthy or comfortable weight range will be for you? What are your goals in terms of returning to your pre-pregnancy weight? How are you feeling about your recovering body size and shape during these early days? As you think to the future and your health and wellness, what are your goals in terms of weight? Or maybe you have another one that you like to use. So I invite you to vote now, and also if anyone would like to put anything in the chat box, an example of a question that they used, please do that now as well. Those are still coming in. They look like they're slowing, so I'll go ahead and broadcast these results. It looks like we do have a winner. Although the first two are popular and a few are popular, it looks like the first one. As you start to lose the weight from the pregnancy, what do you think a healthy or comfortable weight range will be for you? So a very safe kind of framing of the question. I'm going to go back to sharing. On a previous webinar, we talked a lot about resistance. We said that when people are in resistance mode, this is not a place where behavior change will take place. People in resistance mode, they're often verbally arguing against change, right where we don't want them to be. People in a defensive zone, they're not open. They're not feeling safe to share their hopes and goals. So how do we know if someone is in this resistance zone and it's time to shift the focus of the conversation to be in a more productive, positive zone? Here are some of the signs of resistance that were noted on the survey. The doctor says he or she is fine. Comments like, he's just stocky, he's always been big, or maybe it's just our genetics. When the parent or caregiver is extremely overweight themselves, they seem to shut down immediately. When that happens, there may be shame or guilt or other negative emotions around weight. And this is not a positive place of hope or optimism where that behavior change is going to take place. A change in mannerism or tone of voice, defensiveness, arms crossed, no eye contact, short answers. So it could be verbal or it could be nonverbal. In my observations, this change in tone of voice or mannerism, I see it a lot. And as counselors, we need to work on picking up on these often subtle clues of resistance. Because to continue on that same path would only build resistance, and behavior change is not likely to take place. When you run into resistance, often the most effective strategy is just to reflect where they're at. You're not concerned about his growth. Weight is not an issue for you right now. You'd rather focus on eating healthy foods and not a number on the scale. Reflecting doesn't mean you're encouraging them to be unhealthy. It means you're honoring and accepting their feelings, and where they're at is fine. It's a sign of respect. It's giving them the control. I don't have to push for anyone to change when they don't want to. And often, this respect, it gives people the strength to think about things differently. It puts them in a different mindset. And frequently, this will bring down their walls and shift the conversation to a more positive place. Another technique when you run into resistance is to use it as a sign to shift the conversation. Shift away from weight and shift towards behaviors. You can talk about behaviors. You can talk about positive habits they already have in place. By shifting focus to talk about things that they're currently doing well, you can reduce that resistance. You can affirm and support positive behaviors, which can then lead to other positive behaviors. You could bring the conversation to the future and ask what healthy habits they want their children to have when they grow up. What goals do they have, and then what habits can they start to develop today to reach those goals? But often reading the signs on resistance, it's not always that easy. Sometimes it's tricky. For example, You might hear a groan when a woman gets on the scale. Or maybe they turn around so they don't see the number. Or maybe they make a face or roll their eyes when the topic of weight comes up. And this could mean a lot of things. It could mean, I don't want to talk about it. It could mean, I'm unhappy with it, and I do want to make a change, and I would like to talk about it. It could mean, I want to change, but I'm really hopeless around it, so why bother even talking about it? So many of you said that this is often time for reflection or for a question to find out what is going on here. Because by helping clarify the situation, you're better able to help this individual. So another poll question here. So let's assume that a woman gets on the scale and she covers her eyes or she makes a groaning sound. How would you respond to that? So I will give you some choices, and then we'll vote. So how are you feeling with your weight? A question. Tell me about the emotions that getting on the scale bring up for you. You're not thrilled about getting on the scale. So that's a reflection. You're taking a guess at what she's thinking. She could always correct you. No, it's not that. I'm just not focused on my weight right now. Or what are your goals for where you want to be in terms of your weight and where you feel comfortable? Or maybe you have another one that you like to do. And I invite anyone to type in that chat box and just give an example of another thing that we could focus on. It looks like they're starting to dwindle, so I'll go ahead and broadcast those results. And it looks like the first one, how are you feeling about your weight? That's kind of that similar question to when you're just asking that initial question. It's a simple, open question. Also, the second most popular response was that reflection. You're not thrilled about getting on that scale. And letting that be with her and seeing how she responds. I'm going to go back to the sharing. So during conversations around growth and weight, when motivation does come up, we can do a couple of things. We can help strengthen the motivation by building importance for change. And we can then start to move into what goals or actions could we take to make that change happen. So to build importance, we can use our PCS skills, our questions, reflection, our affirmations. We could ask a question to keep them talking about that motivation. A question like, how does it feel when you're at a comfortable weight for you? This technique could help them imagine that feeling of achieving that goal and then help build that motivation. Maybe you could offer a reflection, something like, being a role model for your children around healthy eating and activity is important to you. So hearing this reflection of their own thoughts from you will increase their importance and help keep them talking. Or you could affirm them, tell them about their strengths or why their motivation is worthwhile or important. You could offer an affirmation like, by taking the steps now to become healthier, you're influencing the habits that your children will have for a lifetime. Or your idea to lose weight gradually, that's a smart one. Women who lose weight gradually in healthy ways are more likely to keep it off than those who try to lose it too quickly. So that affirmation, you're building importance to make that change. And if there is motivation around weight gain or weight loss or maintaining a healthy weight, at some point you have to work with them to take that motivation and then turn it into actionable steps. I can't go home and lose weight. That's not an action that I can take. An action is changing what I eat or what I drink or how active that I am. Things within my control. Often what prevents women a lot around weight and weight loss is that feeling of being overwhelmed. It's often so complicated. I don't feel like I have control. I might feel that I've tried and failed in the past. I might feel like I don't have willpower. There might be a lot of other things going on in my life where it feels insurmountable. But we're the voice of hope and optimism. We can say that healthy changes and healthy habits are possible. They are achievable. That small habits and behavior changes over time are the most effective. We help take something big and seemingly insurmountable and make it realistic and something that's achievable given all the demands of their current situation. Here are some of your thoughts around focusing on behaviors and habits. Asking them if there's anything they want to change about their eating habits or their child's eating habits, because that often ties to the weight gain. I like to discuss with parents the ways they can make a positive impact on their child's weight and how their child can still grow into their weight. From birth to 5 is when kids learn the most, and changing habit after that will be more difficult. And this is our specialty, really, our focus, helping elicit motivation around positive behaviors and the development of healthy habits that then can shape that foundation of health for families. So we can help people take those small steps and develop those habits. We can ask questions, we can share information, and these will help people to set those goals. Here are some of your suggestions around goal setting. I always ask, what is one thing that you could change in your diet or habits that you think would help you lose weight? Then we could talk about how that could look and fit into their life. Asking women, is there anything they're working on with their health and goals for them and their family's health and eating? Ask what they dream for their child and tie it to weight control, active lifestyle. Small, obtainable goals are best. Instead of focusing on weight loss, focus on healthy food and beverage choices, as well as physical activity once the mom is given an okay from the medical team. Open-ended questions about goals and motivation. Use reflections and affirmations to strengthen change talk. Focus on lifestyle changes to improve health versus a specific weight loss goal. In one of our previous webinars, we focused specifically around goal setting. What we're doing with goal setting is we're building confidence. Goal setting takes this vague hope or desire, I wish I could lose weight, and it builds legs under it. Goal setting is what makes goals achievable. And the more we can prepare participants with goal setting and building this confidence that they can make this happen within their own lives, the more success they'll have. So some key things around goal setting to remember is asking for their input. What would work for them? Yes, we can definitely share our ideas too, but we want to hear from them because often the ideas that come from their own lips are more likely to be acted on. And often just asking for their ideas is what leads them to turn around and ask for our opinions and our ideas. And now they'll be open and receptive to the idea sharing. We talk about SMART goals. In the last slide, someone said small, obtainable goals are best. So the SMART acronym stands for specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-sensitive. And this is how we build healthy habits over time. We can ask about challenges. We can share that there is no room for perfection when it comes to eating and nutrition and building healthy habits. It's about balance. It's about most of the time. It's about sustainability. And by asking questions about challenges to a goal, you're helping them prepare for that eventuality. So, for example, is packing their own lunch most days their goal? Okay, well, what will they do on the days where it doesn't happen or they get too busy? Is walking 3 to 5 nights a week their goal? Well, what will they do if it's raining outside? Is the goal feeding their child less sweets and more fruit? All right, well, what will they tell themselves if they have a week where the child eats a lot of sweets, more than they wanted them to? What positive message can they tell themselves to keep themselves going and keep themselves motivated? And sharing information helps people with confidence too. You can provide them with recipes or strategies or information. With each nutrition training that we go to, with each experience, with each specialty training like baby behaviors that we go to, we get more tools in our toolbox to pull out whatever time we need to share with people. And by doing this, we're increasing our participants' chance of success and their confidence, and that's our goal. A few more suggestions around goal setting, because there were so many with this survey. Make it their own plan. What works for them? Remind them the weight won't come off all at once. For most women, the weight comes off slowly. Encourage healthy eating, activity, and breastfeeding. Remind them how long they grew the baby and gained the weight, and the normal timeline for losing weight healthfully. Affirm that it's normal to take your time losing weight. These are messages of hope, messages of optimism. And there's so many great suggestions here for approaching and facilitating those discussions around eating and weight. Besides what we say verbally during our counseling sessions, it's also important to look at what other messages we might be sending around weight. What are the messages in the WIC office or in your individual office? Are there pictures and materials, and do they reflect a respectful attitude towards people of different weights? Do they reinforce the message of healthy behaviors at any weight and at any size? Are you role modeling healthy behaviors within the office? Because these unspoken messages also have an impact on our participants and on their success and on their perception of our services. I want to stop here and just offer people the chance, if they'd like to share. You could share by coming off the mute or by typing in the chat box on the left-hand side. Either one is fine, but I'll pause now, and if you'd like to ask a question, share a strategy, or a tip for discussing weight, you can do that now. Okay. Looks like everyone's all set, and I will leave that chat box up for a few minutes at the end of the webinar as well, so if people wanted to share, they could. So I want to say thank you for your continued level of participation in these webinars. And thank you so much for continuing to respond to these surveys, because without your input, these webinars wouldn't be possible. And as we share our ideas with each other, what we're doing is growing and developing our own skills and our own style. So I hope you join us again in the future for more of these webinars. And thank you, and have a great day.